Hi, my name is Noelle Bovon, and I'm a entrepreneur, a business and a life coach, and I'm here to help you create the life you want. Today I want to talk about vulnerability. Really, does being vulnerable make you scared? Does it terrify you? For years, being vulnerable to me meant the end of the world. It meant I would never be respected. I would never be thought as intelligent. I would never be cared for. That I would thought that if I was vulnerable, that the people that I was vulnerable with would hurt me or damage me in some capacity. So that meant that I was reactive. When I was younger, I blamed the circumstances of my life for the reasons that I couldn't be vulnerable because I'd been hurt in the past, and God forbid I became vulnerable with someone and then they hurt me. Then they took advantage of that. And what I've learned is that the more vulnerable I've become, the more grace, the more sweetness, the more love, the more compassion, the more fulfilled my life is. That simple. And what that means for me is that I learn to speak my truth in a compassionate and kind way, and I honor my truth. So I don't walk around and just tell everybody my story. When I talk about speaking my truth, I talk about it for when I teach my yoga classes, for example, is I talk about my own personal experiences, not as like a story in the class, but I'm teaching from those experiences, from that knowledge. And in order to be able to access that information within me as a teacher, I need to feel it. I need to know what that feels like to feel those ways, to be vulnerable enough to feel it, right? Because there's so many walls. I had so many walls up around me that held me tight, that kept me from getting close to people, from sharing my dreams, because I'd been hurt over and over again. And today I know that being vulnerable doesn't save me from getting hurt. What it does is it allows me to live a more whole life. And it makes me feel whole, not perfect. It allows me to express myself in a way that is authentic. And if you're in my circle of friends, you know this, that I don't really engage in distant small talk, I like deep conversations. I'll go deep with people quick, because for me, that's like super interesting. For me, that is a connection. I like to be honest and really get into the juicy parts of life. And so being able to be vulnerable allows me to do that. And vulnerability is one of those things that it's a consistently evolving space within me. It's a consistently evolving action that I take. And so being vulnerable means that there are times when I'm in situations and it doesn't feel, very safe for a number of reasons. Whether it's a social situation and they're just not people that I'm super connected with, I might not come out and tell them my deepest, darkest fears, but what I might do is challenge myself to have a conversation with someone, even though it feels a little bit awkward. And that in itself is being vulnerable. It doesn't mean that I divulge my big dreams or my darkest secrets. It just means that I ask somebody maybe something more personal about them. And so being vulnerable is about finding the flow. I think when we learn to be vulnerable, we find the flow. We find a softness, because everything is not so rigid. It's not so controlled. Vulnerability is letting go of control. It's letting go of this need to be certain about the way things are going to be, and to allow yourself to experience life and its wholeness, right? In the sweetness, in the ebb and the flow. And I sometimes relate it to a river. You know, a river travels in the path of least resistance, always. A river always travels that way. It always moves, it ebbs and it flows in these paths that are gentle. And I mean, sometimes, when you're, paddling and you're in the white water, it's obviously you're in the depth, you're kind of getting churned up. But when you know how to actually paddle in the white water, when you know how to paddle rapids, what you learn how to do is actually move with the flow of the river. Literally move with the flow of the river. So you use the flow of the river to guide you gently down the river. And when in life we can often disconnect ourselves from that flow, right? We forget to not even forget, it's like we get so caught up in ideas and structure and control that we can't even step into vulnerability and find that flow. So what I'm saying is, let's find the flow. Let's move with the way that life shifts and turns and adjusts and throws us things we're not expecting, and take it and take a deep breath sometimes and allow for the unknown to be an act of vulnerability. So if you want to connect with me some more, you can find me on YouTube. If you want to connect with me, you can find me at noellebovon.com, on Facebook or Twitter, or at balooyoga.com. Have a beautiful day. I look forward to connecting soon.